The end of 2025 arrived, and somehow the narrative around the Duke and Duchess of Sussex feels completely disconnected from reality. On paper and in practice, this has been one of the most successful years Harry and Meghan have had since stepping into their independent lives. Professionally, they are stable. Creatively, they are thriving. Strategically, they look far more focused and confident than they have in years. And yet, suddenly, we are being told that everything is falling apart, that their brand is under threat, that Archewell is finished, that staff departures signal some kind of looming disaster. When you step back and actually look at the full picture, the so-called catastrophe simply does not exist. Let us start with the undeniable wins of 2025 because context matters. With Love, Meghan was not just another lifestyle show quietly dropped onto a streaming platform. It was a success that did exactly what it was supposed to do. It humanized Meghan. It showcased warmth and intentional living. It reinforced her strengths in storytelling and curation. It resonated with audiences who were not interested in palace drama, but in authenticity and creativity. Netflix would not have entered into a new first-look agreement if the show had underperformed. Streaming platforms are ruthless. They do not renew or renegotiate out of sentiment. They do it because the numbers and the brand value make sense. The new first-look deal with Netflix is one of the clearest indicators that Harry and Meghan are not in trouble. A first-look deal means Netflix wants priority access to their ideas. It means executives see long-term potential. It also means that several projects are already in motion behind the scenes. Streaming deals do not expand when a company is supposedly losing confidence. They expand when the partnership is working. The announcement of upcoming projects under this new deal further confirms that Archewell Productions is active and planning ahead, not shrinking into irrelevance. Then there is As Ever. Meghan's lifestyle brand did exactly what many critics claimed it would not do. It launched successfully and sold out repeatedly. That alone tells you there is a market. It tells you there is demand. It tells you that Meghan's ability to connect with consumers is very real. Brands do not sell out if people are not interested. And this is without oversaturation, without aggressive advertising, and without constant media hype. That is organic success. Add to that the noticeable improvement in their communications strategy. Fewer reactive statements, more intentional messaging, less engagement with hostile narratives, more clarity about what they are building and why. That does not happen by accident. That happens when a team has learned from experience and is executing a plan. So, when Page 6 suddenly declares a Sussex catastrophe based almost entirely on unnamed sources, it is fair to be sceptical. Not just sceptical, but analytical. Who are these sources? One industry source familiar with the Sussexes, a person familiar with Archewell. These phrases are deliberately vague. They are designed to sound authoritative while revealing nothing verifiable. They are not confirmed insiders. They are not named executives. They are not current staff. They are people speculating from the outside. The article leans heavily on staff departures as proof of collapse. James Holt, stepping down as chief of Archewell Foundation, is presented as a major blow. But leadership transitions in charitable organisations are not unusual. In fact, they are often planned well in advance. James Holt served for years and helped build Archewell from the ground up. Moving on does not erase that work. It simply marks the next phase. The same applies to other staffers mentioned: Genevieve Roth, Christine Schirmer, Ashley Hanston. all professionals who contributed at different stages. Organizations evolve, teams change, especially organizations that are intentionally restructuring. The key detail that critics gloss over is that Archewell is being rebranded as Archewell Philanthropies. That is not a shutdown, that is a strategic shift. A foundation and a philanthropic umbrella are not the same thing. Rebranding allows for flexibility. It allows for partnerships. It allows for different funding mechanisms. Calling that a shuttering is misleading at best. There is also the claim that Shauna Knepp is working as a consultant rather than a full-time employee, as if that is evidence of dysfunction. In reality, consulting arrangements are extremely common in philanthropy and media. They allow organizations to access expertise without the overhead of full-time salaries. That is not mismanagement. That is smart allocation of resources, particularly for a charity that has consistently emphasized that it does not want donations swallowed by administrative costs. The idea that Archewell has been reduced by 85% is another dramatic claim with no evidence attached. Numbers sound alarming when thrown out without context. What was the baseline? How many were full-time versus contract? How many roles were project-specific? Without those details, the statistic is meaningless. What we do know is that Archewell Productions continues to announce projects. That does not happen if there is no staff to execute them. On the production side, the article itself admits that Chanel Pisnick remains head of unscripted and Tracy Ryerson is still producing. Those are not insignificant roles. Those are key positions. And the suggestion that everything hinges on whether, with love, Meghan gets another season ignores how production companies actually work. They develop multiple projects simultaneously. A first-look deal means development continues regardless of one show's renewal status. There is also a recurring pattern in how Harry and Meghan are covered. Every time they streamline or restructure, it is framed as failure. Every time they change direction, it is framed as chaos. But when other public figures do the same, it is called pivoting. It is called focusing. It is called growth. The double standard is glaring. What is actually happening looks far more like consolidation. After several years of experimentation, trial and error, and learning how to operate outside the royal system, Harry and Meghan appear to be refining their approach. Fewer people, clearer roles, more use of consultants, stronger partnerships. That is what mature organizations do. The claim that anyone still there is simply an enabler, enamored with what the couple once was, is not just insulting, it is revealing. It reveals resentment more than insight. It suggests that success must conform to a specific narrative, or it is dismissed. It ignores the reality that Harry and Meghan are no longer trying to be what they once were. They are not working royals. They are independent creators, philanthropists, and entrepreneurs. The model is different. The structure will naturally be different. There is also an assumption embedded in these critiques that bigger always means better. More staff, more offices, more layers. That is not true, especially in philanthropy, especially in modern media. Lean teams are often more effective. They move faster, they cost less, they reduce bureaucracy, and they allow leaders to stay closely involved in the work rather than managing endless hierarchies. When critics say they have essentially lost their foundation in a matter of weeks, what they are really saying is that they do not understand the shift that is happening. Archewell Philanthropies is designed to be more agile, to support causes through grants, partnerships and advocacy, rather than operating as a traditional foundation with heavy overhead. That aligns perfectly with Harry and Meghan's stated values. The repeated assertion that former staff are never heard from again is another misleading talking point. Many professionals prefer to move on quietly. Not everyone wants to remain publicly associated. Not everyone wants to comment. Silence is not proof of betrayal or failure. It is often simply professionalism. Even the mention of losing press staff over the summer is framed as instability rather than recalibration. Media relations for Harry and Meghan have always been uniquely challenging due to hostility from certain outlets. Adjusting that team makes sense. It would be surprising if they did not. What Page 6 and similar outlets consistently fail to acknowledge is that Harry and Meghan do not leak. They do not play the anonymous sourcing game in the way others do. So, when we see vague sources predicting doom, it usually means the writers are filling in gaps with speculation. Royalist outsiders projecting what they think should be happening rather than reporting what actually is. If 2025 tells us anything, it is that Harry and Meghan are no longer chasing validation from legacy media. They are building parallel systems, direct-to-audience content, strategic partnerships, purpose-driven business ventures. That makes them harder to read from the outside, and when people cannot see inside, they assume collapse. Looking ahead to 2026, the signs point to continued evolution rather than disaster. More Netflix content, further expansion of As Ever, a refined philanthropic model, likely fewer announcements and more delivery, less noise, more substance. The obsession with counting staffers misses the bigger story. The story is about control, about sustainability, about aligning resources with mission. Harry and Meghan have spent years being told they are doing too much and too little at the same time. Now that they are choosing focus, it is being framed as loss. There is no catastrophe here. There is transition. There is strategy. There is a couple who have weathered far worse than tabloid speculation and come out stronger. They have faced institutional hostility, public scrutiny, and relentless misinformation. And yet they continue to create, to give, and to build. So when headlines scream collapse, remember the facts. Successful shows, renewed deals, sold-out products, a clearer communications approach, a philanthropic rebrand aimed at impact rather than optics. That is not the picture of a brand under threat. That is the picture of a brand growing into its next chapter. 2026 is not going to be about proving critics wrong, because Harry and Meghan no longer need to do that. It will be about continuing to do the work on their own terms. And if that makes some observers uncomfortable, that says far more about them than it does about the Sussexes.